Hey, what's good? I Ask AI is a YouTube channel that discusses current topics with ChatGPT. This video is called I Let AI Predict Trump's First 100 Days in Office. And here's what it said. Trump has been in office for a couple weeks now, and I think it's going to be fun to see what ChatGPT said back before he took office. I'm going to keep working on texturing some models in Photoshop and Blender. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes I think would look good on you. Let's go. All right, I Ask AI. Let's see what you have to say about Trump's first 100 days. He's been in for, like I said, a couple weeks. So it'll be interesting to see, to compare. Here we go.
Welcome everyone. On this channel, I use the AI to break down complex topics like politics without bias or emotion. So, Donald Trump has just been inaugurated and is officially the brand new president of the United States. Today, I'm going to ask ChatGPT to predict what his first 100 days will look like, what decisions he's going to make, how they're going to affect our lives, the United States, and the rest of the world. And what should we be ready for? So let's find out what it has to say. Now, I actually asked it to predict this a couple of months ago, but let's be real, so much has happened since then. Back then, we didn't even know his cabinet picks, his tariff plans, or those wild ideas about buying Greenland, amongst other things. So it'll be really interesting to see what ChatGPT...
I will say this. Not that it makes a whole lot of sense, but, you know, Greenland, adding Greenland to the U.S., it's a wild idea, but I'm not sure, like, I'm sure there's someone else that's like, nah, we good. So they're not just gonna just give it up, but, like, hopefully they talk about this, but how will owning Greenland benefit us, with the exception of like natural materials and stuff like that? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll take a look at a video that explains that a little bit more.
thinks now, based on all of the current information as of today. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you enjoy these conversations with AI and want to see more, let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you're into this kind of content, and it helps this video to reach even more people just like you. All right, thanks in advance, and now let's jump right into it. And here we are. First, to make sure that ChatGPT is fully up to date on what's going on right now, I'm asking it to gather all of the current information and let me know when it's ready. And here we go. Great, now it's ready, so let's get started. I'm asking it to be clear, straightforward, and most importantly, absolutely 100% unbiased in its answers. No left or right-leaning takes, just precise analysis to make an honest prediction.
Just the facts, man.
And let me clear something up. This isn't a fortune teller. You can absolutely disagree with what it says. The main goal is to give it all the available information so that it can make an honest analysis of Trump.
Yeah. Just let something with no feelings or emotion actually break down the data, and so we can learn. Like hopefully there's a lot of things that that have been said that ruffle feathers and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, if it makes the system operate a little bit smoother, you have to pay attention. You have to take a look at making things a little bit less clogged, less cluttered. We got things to do. We can't be sitting around just like twiddling our thumbs, not looking at improving the way the system works for the American people. Let's go.
Next moves. Just keep that in mind when we ask it to predict something. Now, I don't think that it's all that important to figure out the exact order of decisions, like what comes first or second and so on, but instead, I'm asking it to focus on what Trump could do overall in his first 100 days. Okay. So now, let's have it break down one topic that it chooses, and here it is. Trump plans to launch the largest mass deportation campaign the country has ever seen, targeting undocumented immigrants with criminal records, recent border crossers, and those with final deportation orders. He's
Yeah.
promised to expand ICE, build more detention centers, and use local police as an extension of
I'm not
federal
sure why to
immigration
detain
enforcement.
them, but
This isn't just about removing people, it's about making a bold statement and showing his base that he's delivering on promises. Trump talks about
okay.
using expedited removals on a nationwide scale, cutting legal protections to fast-track deportations. He's also planning mass workplace raids in industries like agriculture and construction, both to remove workers and to send a message that undocumented immigrants aren't welcome. The goal is to create fear within immigrant communities, making it harder for people to stay or find stable employment.
Which is controversial because it's not illegal aliens giving illegal aliens the jobs. These are corporations that are looking for cheaper labor to do the work. And so they get these folks. It's very similar to, again, Silicon Valley over here. You can get people that aren't from here and you can pay them less. And then if they complain, then you can kick them out of the country. If you guys haven't figured out that part of the game, oh, we got a lot of learning to do. Anyway, here we go.
But deporting millions, as Trump claims, isn't realistic. ICE doesn't have the capacity, resources, or manpower to handle such an operation, even with additional funding. Trump absolutely knows these numbers won't be delivered. He knows that deporting millions in such a short time is logistically impossible. But for him, it's not about the numbers, it's about the image. The point of this campaign is to maintain his public image with his base, projecting strength, action, and leadership. The spectacle of mass arrests, detention buses, and tough rhetoric is what matters. It's designed to energize his supporters and reinforce their belief that he's fighting for them, even if the reality falls short of the promises.
Yeah.
In the first 100
They
days,
don't
there
care.
will likely be a sharp increase in arrests, overcrowded detention centers, and headlines about families being torn apart. In the end, the goal isn't to fix immigration, it's to dominate the narrative, keep the spotlight on himself, and strengthen his hold on his base, regardless of whether the promises can be delivered.
Jeepers.
All right, but let me ask one follow-up question. I just want ChatGPT to sum it all up and tell me what it thinks about this move, and here's the short answer. Mass deportations on the scale Trump promises won't happen. The logistics, legal challenges, and resistance from cities make it impossible to reach the numbers he's claiming. However, his actions would undoubtedly lead to fewer undocumented immigrants, especially those with criminal records in the U.S. In that sense, it's a partial
if you
success
wanna get
for
rid of
achieving
them,
stricter
do that.
immigration enforcement. The methods, though, are a different story. Raids, family separations, and expedited removals that bypass due process create fear and chaos. They destabilize communities and raise serious human rights concerns, making the approach heavy-handed and deeply flawed. But in the long-term perspective, people could look back and say that Trump partially tackled illegal immigration. The harsh methods will fade from
Yeah,
him.
I mean, we've saw it throughout American history where everyone complains about illegal immigration, but no one ever does anything. And then finally, when someone does something, everyone catches feelings. We have a system that's inundated. It's too bogged down. It's clogged. And then someone comes in and says, hey, let's unclog it. And everyone gets upset. And I understand that it's a nuanced thing. I understand that there's families being separated and all that stuff. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our system needs to be fixed. Whoever the hell wants to do it, it needs to be fixed and optimized to the point where it doesn't take all that long. Or maybe it's a little bit easier for our processors to be able to process these people and accept or deny them, you know? I don't know. It's a tricky situation, but I mean, you can't complain that no one is doing anything to fix things, but then when someone rattles the cage, you can't be upset that they rattled the cage or that they're trying to do it differently. I mean, the rhetoric is wild. The way that he talks about people, the way that whole administration, not just Trump, the whole administration, the way that they talk about people, it's pretty, it's shitty. It's shitty. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of people who see something in this dude that, or in the system, and they want to clean out the system, or they want to rattle the cage of the system, and let's see.
For many, while the results, a reduction in undocumented populations, could remain as a legacy, some numbers might be achieved, but at a significant social and moral cost. So then, long story short, ChatGPT thinks that Trump's goal to reduce undocumented immigration sounds good on paper, but the methods he plans to use are pretty bad. All right, we're done with immigration, so let's see what else Trump might do in the next 100 days.
Let's see.
Here we go. Trump will move quickly to roll back energy and environmental policies, targeting regulations he sees as obstacles to economic growth and energy independence. He'll focus on lifting restrictions on oil and gas drilling, reviving coal production, and withdrawing from international climate agreements like the Paris Accord. Expect him to greenlight controversial projects like pipelines, expand offshore drilling, and open federal lands for fossil fuel extraction, all while framing these moves as job-creating wins for American workers. While this will boost fossil fuel industries in the short term, it will gut environmental protections, stall renewable energy progress, and worsen climate change. Legal challenges will follow, but Trump will use
When I was in Dubai, they were talking about how they're trying to get away from fossil fuels, and they're trying to invest more into renewable energy and, wind, solar, all that stuff, water, and not for anything but Saudi Arabia, who they just make all kinds of money. They're investing in renewable energy too. They have something to say when it comes to the market of oil. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this one plays out. At the end of the day, we need to be energy independent. Doesn't necessarily have to be oil, doesn't necessarily only have to be solar, doesn't only necessarily have to be electric or wind. But we do, again, we need to educate our population so we can then have more scientists, mathematicians, teachers, all those people that can take a look at a situation like this and help improve it. We can't continue to rely on the same handful of scientists and then go to China for building something, and then go to Saudi Arabia for the oil, and then go to, that's too much. That's too much. We have to educate our population to think our way through all of these hurdles and all of these obstacles.
Flash to rally his base, claiming he's defending American jobs against environmental elites. The results will be symbolic victories for traditional energy, but the long-term costs, environmental damage, and global isolation on climate policy will outweigh any short-term gains.
Ridiculous.
Okay, nothing good here. I mean, it doesn't really matter how good something seems in the short term if it's just gonna make things worse in the long run, right? All right, we're done with that, so now let's see what Trump's next move might be. Trump is likely to impose new trade tariffs in his early term, targeting imports from Mexico, Canada, and China. Reports suggest a 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada, with an additional 10% on imports from China. While this move will be framed as holding these countries accountable, whether for immigration policies, trade imbalances, or intellectual property theft, the reality is these tariffs won't hurt foreign governments or companies as much as they'll impact American businesses and consumers. When tariffs are applied, it's U.S. companies importing the goods that pay the price, not the foreign producers. Those costs.
Now, what's interesting is I watched a video not too long ago that talked about tariffs and how when the United States was actually first formed and it was actually doing international trade, we didn't have income tax. We had tariffs. And so if you wanted to do business in America, you would have to pay the tariffs, and there was no income tax, which is the big thing. The way that the United States was getting its money for war was through tariff basically taxing other countries. But if you're selling to a country that you're about to pick a fight with, they're going to stop buying stuff from you. And we're starting to see that between Canada, Mexico, and even China. They're all pushing back on this idea of tariffs. So if those outside countries stop selling products in America, then America is going to run out of money. And so it won't be operational. And then it can't wage war. Come to find out, the government found out that by installing an income tax, then they can have their own revenue that is not reliant on anyone buying things from us. And now they can wage wars whenever the hell they want. They don't need to save up the money. They don't need to, ramp up the tariffs or whatever. So that was very interesting for me to see, because it explained income tax and tariffs, and now they're trying to have income tax and tariffs. It seems like a money grab. It seems like there's a bunch of smart people that have been manipulating the system, and rich people get money to do whatever it is that rich people do, and then the poor people have to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And now we're pissing off the world, which we wanted to shake the cage. Here we are, we're shaking the cage.
It passed directly to consumers in the form of higher prices. Everything from cars and electronics to groceries and basic household items will become more expensive. The added 10% on China will hit especially hard, given how much of the U.S. supply chain relies on Chinese goods. The ripple effects won't stop there. Countries hit with these tariffs will retaliate with their own, targeting U.S. exports.
We saw
American farmers, manufacturers, and other exporters will suffer as their products become more expensive in global markets, reducing demand and profits. Trump will dismiss these consequences, pointing to any isolated success stories like a new factory opening or a slight increase in domestic steel production, while ignoring the widespread financial strain. The strategy is simple but flawed. It plays well politically, especially with his base, who see it as a tough stance against trade cheaters, but economically it's short-sighted. Rising costs for businesses and consumers will outweigh any short-term wins, and the economic disruption will fall squarely on the shoulders of everyday Americans. This isn't holding foreign powers accountable, it's taxing the American people to make a point.
Which makes me wonder, and I know this is probably just a weird thing, but it makes me wonder what this administration and I'm talking like just everyone, and we can open that umbrella. Everyone in government, like, what are they doing? Like, they're comfortable sitting in this big old room and voting and taking jabs at each other, but it doesn't seem like they're doing a lot. They're not fixing a lot. Yeah, and there's a lot of weirdness happening in the back end, and I just don't understand it yet. So I wonder, that's the good thing about social media, is that, there's lights are being turned on in all these rooms, so we're going to be able to find out what exactly is happening and where our money is going. Again, there was a story where, I found out that these folks they spend more money on illegal aliens being here than they do on veterans. And again, they're not doing anything with education. That's not how I want my money spent. Think about that. Think about how your money is going to the government. How are they spending it?
Right, so ChatGPT thinks that tariffs would not be great for the economy, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe you don't agree, maybe you think that tariffs, mass deportations, and anything else we've talked about so far are actually good. I mean, seriously, different perspectives are welcome, especially if you have solid reasoning or evidence to back them up. So
I like
let us
that.
know
I
if
like
you
that
see
approach.
things differently. Oh, and by the
I
way,
like
I've
that
got
approach.
another great video about tariffs, actually even two of them. In one, ChatGPT breaks it all down, and in the other, Elon Musk's AI Grok gives its take on whether Trump's tariffs are good or bad for the United States. So, be sure to check those out when you're done here. It's super interesting because both of those AIs actually gave different answers. Alright, now back to the chat. Let's ask about Trump's next move, and here's the answer. Trump is likely to issue a wave of pardons early in his term, focusing on allies connected to him, especially those involved in the January 6th Capitol riot. He'll frame these pardons as fighting against a weaponized justice system, energizing his base while portraying himself as the defender. While he cannot pardon state-level convictions, he could still use his authority to shield close associates and allies from federal charges, undermining ongoing investigations and reinforcing his narrative of political persecution. The move will spark outrage, with critics calling it an abuse of power and a threat to the rule of law. Legal experts will debate the implications, particularly if he pushes controversial legal theories about a self-pardon. His base, however, will see it as a bold stand against an unfair system. While this strategy will deepen political divides and erode trust in the rule of law, Trump will prioritize loyalty and control over institutional integrity. For him, it's not about justice, it's about power. Okay, well, that all makes sense. Got it. Now I'm going to ask about Trump's foreign policy decisions and international relations, specifically his approach to China, Russia's war in Ukraine, and of course, the possibility of buying Greenland or taking control of the Panama Canal. Now we're talking about Trump's foreign policy, and we'll begin with Russia and Ukraine. So, will Trump take any action on that within the first 100 days? Let's find out the answer. It's hard to believe that Trump could bring the war in Ukraine to an end within his first 100 days. However, he'll likely take steps to push toward a resolution that fits his transactional approach. Trump would almost certainly reject Ukraine's ambitions to join NATO in the near future, presenting it as a move to ease tensions with Russia. At the same time, he'd pressure Ukraine to accept territorial concessions, effectively forcing them to cede parts of their country to stop the war.
That would be fun to follow up on too, because that is an interesting thing. From what I understand, Putin was saying that he doesn't want NATO on his doorstep, and then the West, we'll just say, the West kind of pressured their way in there, and now we have Ukraine that wants to join NATO, which is exactly what Putin didn't want, and now there's bloodshed. I don't know what the answer is going to be for that, but we need to get to the point where we're actually being diplomatic. Killing people's population is just not the way to do it. And Trump said that he knew how to fix it in 24 hours, so it'll be interesting to see what ChatGPT said.
Russia, Trump could offer to lift or ease some of the harsher sanctions, using it as leverage to bring Putin to the table. He would frame this as a quick and bold solution, but it would ultimately reward Russian aggression and undermine international principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. The fundamental issue is that Ukraine's goals and Putin's ambitions are fundamentally incompatible and have no common ground. Ukraine wants to remain independent, build stronger ties with the West, and live in peace. Putin, on the other hand, seeks to erase Ukraine's sovereignty entirely, either by absorbing it into Russia or reducing it to a subservient state under Moscow's control. No negotiation or forced deal can reconcile these irreconcilable visions, and any attempt to impose such a solution would likely unravel, leaving the door open for further instability and aggression.
That's what we don't need.
Well, that actually sounds pretty realistic. And of course, I've got a special video on this topic as well. So if you're interested in ChatGPT's take on a peace plan for Ukraine, there should be a pop-up. Just click on it and check it out. Alright, now let's move on and talk about Greenland, the Panama Canal, China's influence on it, and what Trump might do about all of that in the next 100 days, and here's the answer. I don't believe Trump will make serious moves to acquire Greenland or assert control over the Panama Canal in his first 100 days, but he could float the ideas for their symbolic and political impact. Greenland, with its immense strategic value in the Arctic and its untapped resources, would be an attractive target for Trump's bold headline-driven leadership style. He could revisit his earlier proposal to buy Greenland and frame it as a way to counter Chinese and Russian influence in the region. China's investments in Greenland's mining sector and Arctic research, along with Russia's growing military presence in the Arctic, would provide Trump with a rationale for such a move. However, Denmark has already rejected the idea outright, and raising it again would only...
And that's why he's been talking about Greenland and all that stuff. Now, what drives me crazy is when he talks about buying Greenland, whatever, but then he wants to trade it for Puerto Rico. Oh boy, that's the part that really that's the part that, again, it might make sense to do that, but when you talk stupid shit, you turn people off. So I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand why you guys let people talk to you like that. It's not cool. It's not cool.
Relations with NATO allies. While it might grab headlines, it's highly unlikely any real progress would be made in those first 100 days. The situation with Panama and the canal is similar. While Trump might highlight the strategic importance of the Panama Canal and the need to counter Chinese influence, given China's investments in port facilities near the canal, he's unlikely to take meaningful steps to increase U.S. control in the first 100 days. The canal remains firmly under Panamanian control, and any move by Trump to assert more U.S. influence would provoke significant backlash from Panama and other countries in the region. Trump could use the issue as a talking point to energize his base, framing it as a bold move to protect American interests, but the complexities of the situation make significant action improbable within such a short time frame. Alright, well, you know, the plans to take control of those regions actually sound pretty reasonable, don't you think? I mean, it's not just about leaving them alone, because they won't stay that way. Anywhere the US pulls back, China or Russia will immediately step in to fill that gap.
And so you remember us talking about Ukraine about 2-3 minutes ago. Like, it's not okay for us to have Ukraine join NATO, but it's okay for Putin to push through and like break in and like straight up jack part of their country. That's, you know what I mean? Like that's not, no, that's why I'm telling you guys, like, it's not a good idea to have strongmen type controlling. Like, you could leverage them in a completely different way, but the greedy strongmen type that tell you, or that try to convince you that only they can fix you and all that stuff, we good. I don't care how smart you are, you need help. I don't care. Yeah, you need input from other people, but just walking around and throwing your weight around like a bully is not the answer. It's not the answer.
So maybe it does make sense. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But right now it's time for the final question, where I ask ChatGPT to sum it all up and give me its take on all the actions Trump might take during those 100 days. So go ahead, ChatGPT. Overall, it feels chaotic and short-sighted. While some moves might resonate with his base and grab attention, they come at the expense of long-term stability and meaningful progress. The focus seems to be more on creating division, dominating the narrative, and appearing decisive rather than addressing complex issues with thoughtful planning. This kind of approach risks straining international relationships and undermining.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like, there's a way of doing it. You don't have to be a jerk. You don't have to like just come in and break things just for the sake of breaking things. You have to come in with a plan, not concepts of a plan. You have to have a to-do list instead of just a list of complaints. I don't get it.
Institutions and leaving major challenges unresolved. It prioritizes quick impact over sustainable solutions, which I think is more harmful than productive in the long run.
All right, there you go. ChatGPT weighing in on Trump's first 100 days. And again, it's interesting because he's been in office for a couple of weeks and he has held true to some of his promises. There are some things that I see him doing that I think are not going to be beneficial. And that's basically saying that he can do something even though he knows that it's not legal to do. And then he sends it up the flagpole to see if it flies, and it gets smacked down by whether it be a judge or people in the government. And then he says, "Oh," and then he plays victim. You know, that part I've been noticing, and I'm trying to keep from complaining about it too much because it is what it is. I mean, he's in charge. He's the dude. So we have to let him do what he does. But to me, it just seems like kicking up all this chaos and doing all this stuff. Like that's not how a government should be. It should be run. And there's unauthorized people going in and doing all kinds of things with like payment systems and security files and all kinds of stuff. Like, this chaos is wild. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. And hopefully all of these ideas that he has about coming in and being a bully and pushing people around, hopefully it works. But I don't see it working outside the United States. Like, everyone is pushing back, and all of the, I don't want to say damage, but all of the chaos is only happening within the walls of Congress. It's only happening within the government system. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, but let me say it like this. I hope that you guys got it right. I really do. Because this nation we can't keep going the way that we are. We can't keep wasting money on wars and just the silly ways that they've been spending money. That's why it doesn't all the way piss me off that there's a group of people shaking things up. The way that they're doing it is pretty scary. Here we are. And we're 2 weeks into it, and it's been that neck break pace. And so we have 4 years of change. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with each and every one of your friends. And if you want to come hang out with me and watch videos while I work on creative projects, hit that subscribe button and then change the little bell to all. So that way, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. Don't forget to go to coconutjustice.com and get you some dope gear. And with that, I'm out.
Coconut Justice.